Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And, you know, Bill, it's really amazing sometimes to see how some people are able to influence others, and to the point of complete alternate reality. And I think that would be a great thing to talk about today. And I know we have a few examples to cite here and refer to.
Tom, it's such an interesting thing because manipulation is a word that has a very strong vibration to it. And what the vibration of the word is that somebody is doing something to another person at that person's expense, and then creates a victim on the other side. And the way to talk about manipulation, the safest and most effective way, is the loss of choice, that the person loses choice and doesn't really realize that the other person is benefiting from that person's loss of choice. So because this is a language show, we need to learn how to catch ourselves using words. The word manipulation, I'll keep framing the word choice right after the word manipulation so that it doesn't grab the energy and take it into blaming and helplessness, because that's what winds up happening with certain words. So, like, for example, people will say the phrase, "I felt manipulated by." That's not a true sentence, because manipulated is not a feeling. It's a mental construction of what somebody is doing to us or doing to a person. So as somebody that listens to as a mediator and listens to people communicate, when somebody says, "Oh, I felt manipulated by that boyfriend or girlfriend, and that person's such a manipulator," they have no idea that when they're saying it in that way, they're actually giving up their advocacy and choice. Because as soon as you blame others, what happens is you're molecularly tied to that person through the word manipulation. You don't know that that's what's happening. And people will say, "Oh, no, I'm not." And the answer is, well, you're defending them now. How did you do that? If you're saying, "No, I'm not," and you're not even looking at the power of language, you think you can override your subconscious mind, your logical mind thinks it can do that. Have you ever been in your own body and walked through a kitchen with a plate full of cookies? I mean, your subconscious mind will take a hold of you at any time. And that's the challenge with manipulation and messaging. And Tom, I think you watched a TV show about that. Tell the listeners a little bit about that, because that was fascinating. I haven't seen it yet. I'm looking forward to it. But
it was absolutely fascinating. Yeah, I watched just recently because it's brand new. It just came out here in January 2022. It's a Netflix docu-series, just 3 parts, 3 episodes, so not that long. It's not even 3 full hours worth of content, but an amazing true story shared in this documentary called The Puppet Master. And that phrase, the puppet master, the person pulling the strings of the marionette, whatever, controlling and the situation. I mean, I'll try and just sum it up pretty quickly. Basically, a man in Great Britain, beginning in really late teens or about 20 years old at college, really using his own skills at language, and I'm going to use the word manipulation, but you're right. As you watch this story, it is about the loss of choice of these people that are his victims. So starting in the early 90s and then stretching through even to still today, it is amazing. There are, several different key stories that the documentary takes you through that you think is just him manipulating, at different times, like 2 or 3 different groups of people and individuals. But you learn as the investigation happens, eventually the guy is caught in the early 2000s, tried and convicted, sentenced to life in prison in the UK, and then appeals that conviction, wins, and is still out today and doing the same thing he's been doing, which has been bilking millions of dollars from his victims, and not just money. I mean, if this was just a con artist with taking money from people, that's one thing. But this is someone who really has been manipulating person after person, and these poor people for 10 years sometimes, not having control over their own lives. And I know this may sound hard to believe to our listeners right now. What I'm talking about is like, who can really do that? Who can really make someone do things against their will for a period of 10 years or more? And then person after person, victim after victim. It's like absolutely so shocking, which is why it makes for a good documentary, good television, in that it's just so shocking and sad at the same time.
Shocking and sad. Yeah. Because from the outside, you're observing it the way you're observing it, Tom, and you're seeing that, oh my gosh, how could this person believe or let this person do this? And when there is the investment of I care about this other person, or this person needs my help, or I'm loyal to this person, or I love this person, or this person said this and this is very meaningful to me, is the puppet master, the person that is in that position, is literally using language very similar to putting bait on a fish hook. And what they do with language is they throw it in front of the person. Oh, they didn't bite on that sentence. Oh, they didn't bite on that sentence. Oh, they didn't bite on that sentence. Oh, they bit on that sentence. I'm just going to give this person those kinds of sentences because they're going to bite on that sentence, and they will do what I would like them to do because they're using that sentence. They're using that sentence as bait on the hook. And that person says, oh, yes, that was something my father never gave me, was the acknowledgement that I need. This is what my mom never gave me, is the encouragement that I needed. And he just figures out which one to use. Now, this is where it gets a little bit dicey, because this is happening at different levels that are from the range of pathology, which is where this person is doing it at the extreme expense of others, to modestly to motivate somebody to do something, like a football coach on a football team trying to get his players to play harder and saying things to inspire them to do well. And to the light version is, hey, listen, could you bring me that dish from the sink and put it in the dishwasher? It would make a difference. And the person is not person/child is not giving up their choice. You're trying to give them a good reason to take their dish, their cereal dish from the table and put it in the dishwasher, is because that's what responsibility is that you want to give them the good reason. So is that a manipulation or is that a moment of accountability? Well, it's kind of a moment of accountability, but Tom, you could see now that there is a range, just the way I've described that, is that now where does society step in and say where the line of pathology steps in? If a court is putting this person in prison for life and some court goes like, this person is a danger to others, and then through some kind of legal technicality, this person gets off and is out and is now ripping off people right now, did the law of the land?
Well, so you're going to love this one, Bill. This one's going to blow your communications mind. Now, keep in mind, this person was tried, convicted, and then the conviction overturned in the British court of law, right? So it's British law, which I don't understand. Okay. I mean, I'm not even a lawyer in the United States, but I mean, certainly from a lot of things we tend to understand about our laws in the US of what's legal and what's not. Obviously, it becomes more complicated in another country. The reason this guy was overturned, he was convicted under a law which basically was something about false imprisonment over people that he had manipulated and was keeping under his control or like that. And his attorneys argued that the people that were his purported victims were free to leave at any time. He wasn't locking them up in a room. He wasn't chaining them to a radiator in the room. He wasn't physically restraining them, that they were free to go at any time. Therefore, he was not guilty of this false imprisonment. And you and I know, I mean, this is what we're talking about in the show here. Communication, words can be weaponized and be as powerful to restrain someone as physical restraints can, but because the way the law was written, because these people were not physically restrained, he got off after spending a few years in jail. This appeal took a while, but he gets back out and he goes right back to what he's had been doing that got him in legal trouble, criminal justice trouble in the first place. And it is just mind-blowing.
The laws are to protect people. They're also to protect individual rights. And all of a sudden, if those people want to be taken advantage of, what does society do to protect them? There's a whole bunch of people on the planet goes like, too bad. Too bad. Let those people, if they're so quote unquote weak-minded, why does the law have to protect weak-minded people? Because there is no ethics or morals to that.
Oh, well, now you're going to start to push one of my buttons, Bill. Weak-minded people, no ethics or morals. I mean, to me, there's not a very big leap from what this puppet master did to his people. And I know our listeners are not going to really understand the details of this until they watch this Netflix docu-series, but we're talking about verbal manipulation to the extreme. And I don't see that there's a big difference between that and what Tucker Carlson did on his show to Ted Cruz after Ted Cruz was berated by Tucker on his show for Ted Cruz saying on the Senate floor that the January 6th mob were terrorists, that the insurrectionists were terrorists. And that word set Tucker off. And I mean, he was abusive on his own show to Ted Cruz like an abusive parent would be, it seemed. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think
Ted didn't even know what to do, and he didn't know what to do. He went to apologize and did this and became weak. It was it was the new version of Lindsey Graham flip-flopping. It's a new version of, yeah, I'm this, then I'm that, then I'm this, then I'm that. I'm going like, you're being as moldy as a piece of clay, and all I got to do is squish this, and then you're disjointed over there. I mean, it's very, very tough because people don't really understand the vibrational that language has a vibration to it. Now, there's a physics to it, right, Tom? That if I use words, the vibration of the word hits your ear like it's hitting these listeners, and the vibration then changes the physiology of the person, so that the physiology then adjusts to the word. Tom, you have a favorite kind of ice cream. What's your favorite ice cream?
Oh, for me, it's Ben & Jerry's strawberry cheesecake.
Now, as soon as we start talking about Ben & Jerry's strawberry cheesecake, and that strawberry cheesecake is like this, and the strawberry cheesecake is like that, notice the vibration of Tucker Carlson and Cruz is out. Your cells started changing. Your physiology started to lighten up. You felt delighted about the cheesecake because I'm talking about a different vibrational thought, and the vibration changed inside your body just by changing the topic to ice cream. One of the things that is happening in media, especially polarized media, is that the person keeps coming back to that negative message. They want to hear the doom and gloom. If it bleeds, it leads. If it's more egregious, I'm going to listen to it. And so what happens is we as listeners, does the end justify the mean? That the end for messaging is engagement. Engagement at any cost. Well,
and it's not just engagement at any cost, but just sticking with Tucker Carlson for a moment, engagement at any cost, but it's also engagement to serve a purpose, for a specific agenda. And it really does come back to this manipulation word you used earlier.
Yes.
Where, we have, in a recent court proceeding, Tucker Carlson being defended in court, his own lawyers argued to the judge successfully, I might add,
yes, that
the things that Tucker Carlson says on his show, no reasonable person, and I'm going to put some quotes around that, air quotes around reasonable, no reasonable person would believe what Tucker Carlson says on his own show is true. That is a shocking and really scary honesty coming out of a courtroom that really says, hey, Tucker Carlson is a former puppet master himself. And to an extent, many of the shows on the Fox News network. Now, I'm probably going to get a lot of pushback on that. But this is really scary. You use the word propaganda a lot on this show. And it seems like we're so right there in our media.
Well, news as entertainment, to be sold as a product of entertainment, is something that we realized that, and many businessmen have realized that is valuable property. You can sell news as entertainment. And it's the funny part of our society now has moved to the emphasis on, when something has a high rating, that means it's valuable and it's right. Well, it's valuable to the advertisers. It's not valuable to the listener. It's valuable to the And it's not valuable to the country. It's valuable to the listener, to the messenger, because that's engagement. So former President Trump would say, look at CNN ratings. They're boring. They have low ratings. Well, they have low ratings because they're not trying to sell as much and message as much as other entertainment first, news second. They're doing news fact first and trying to keep the engaged person to come to the next show and staying away from too much language of enticement. The language of enticement keeps the listener coming back. So some people, and there's many people says, well, both sides are doing it. Well, what both sides are doing is trying to keep the viewer on the show, so they keep listening. I mean,
yeah, they're trying to keep them hooked, right?
Trying to keep them hooked, and I can listen to Rachel Maddow and go like, "Yep, this is what she's doing. She's has her form of outrage. She has her form of, upset. She has her form of this, and there's no better example than Rachel Maddow promoting the show on, we finally have a version of Trump's taxes. We got the taxes, and everyone was watching her. And every break she says, come back, more will be revealed. Come back, more will be revealed. Come back, more would be revealed. Come back, more would be revealed. And guess what? By the end of the show, even everybody that was in news that was watching is going like, there's nothing there.
What was revealed?
Because there was nothing revealed other than you just kept me coming back to wait more than revealed. And all she did was another small version of outrage throughout the entire show. And it's like, yeah, well, the laws are written that way. Yeah, well, he got away with it. Yeah, well, that's the way he positioned it. Wow, that was pretty smart. Wow, that was pretty interesting. And if somebody is in the place of being unethical and nobody challenges the person because there is a backlash in order to do it, people do not like it when you take down a person of wealth and affluence, because there's so many people that looked up to the person of wealth and affluence as being a model. It's only like until you get to the Bernie Madoff guys, and then that is the reason why the economy crashed. No, that was one guy doing one thing, and by the way, all the other people around that story, they got away with stealing money from other people. They literally got away from it because those stories were not as sexy or enticement, because what he clearly did was clearly criminal. What they did was play by the broken rules.
Oh my gosh.
And were able to steal from people.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the whole movie, The Big Short, shines a light on exactly this type of thing,
so
where
upsetting.
the entire, mortgage and really financial system of America was on the brink and almost came crashing down to kill our economy. And only one person at one company out of all that ever was even prosecuted and saw some jail time. And you have all these people, and the biggest one that I remember in all that is the bond credit agencies like Moody's, or who, I forget who the couple were, but these bond credit agencies that were putting their stamp of approval on these completely junky, bad risk investments and rating them as an A or a AA or a AAA rating, saying, hey, these are safe investments, that they actually admitted that, well, if we don't rate them as A, then our customers are just going to go down to the next rating agency and have them do it. And so we just lose the business. So they admitted they were falsifying this garbage funds or groups of mortgages as being good, and the whole system just fed on itself and collapsed.
So unsettling. It was literally, it was watching that movie. It's bringing up a lot of emotions for me because of the amount of money I lost because of that. It's like when you are not playing in those spheres and don't have an awareness of that thing, it's very similar to the puppet master, where we're being messaged that what we're doing is right and good and we're on top of things. Meanwhile, the manipulation / the lack of choice. Notice I'm going right back to the word choice, because choice is the spotlight, language-wise, to melt the manipulator. Choice
and
is the spotlight.
This is where I come back to Ted Cruz in that episode with, notice I call it episode, of Tucker Carlson's show, where Tucker is not buying Ted Cruz's initial response.
You know what the funny thing? If I was coaching Ted Cruz, and he would, and Tucker would have went into him, and you would go like, Ted could have become presidential in that moment.
Absolutely, he could have.
He totally could have. He totally could have whipped up on that and took Tucker's viewership and put it on the head. You go like, well, Tucker, you want to call it this, and I called it an insurrection because that definition looks like this, and there's a lot of Americans that have the truth that it's this, and they voted this way, and a lot of Americans believe what you do and voted this other way. And Tucker, to be honest with you, there were some people that died there, and there was people that were inflamed there, and guess what? That was violence, and that people came to the Capitol with weapons. And do you want me to ignore that truth, Tucker, or would you like me to keep the party line and to apologize you? Was that what you'd like to do? Now, what winds up happening is Tucker's viewership would take a hit because Cruz would be able to
peeling back the curtain a little bit,
peeling back the curtain a little bit and like this. But Tucker's viewership doesn't. They have other places to go, but not too far. There's not too far because they've already invested in the bait that Tucker puts in the water. And again, Rachel Maddow puts different kind of bait in the water to get people to follow her messaging and have that version of an enraged listener. It's the enraged listener. And again, we're trying to keep eyeballs in a society that has, through the internet, diversified its listening platform and viewership, and people are grasping, the people at the top are grasping for attention from the latest tweet, from the latest, the latest outrage, and it's going, and we're very much in a volatile situation. And that's where people who can use language to build loyalty thrive at the expense of others.
And that's exactly what Tucker Carlson did. He made Ted Cruz bend on his knee and kiss his ring through the language that he used, and berating him, manipulating him. It was really sad to see. And instead of, as you suggest, Ted Cruz becoming very presidential in that moment and could have schooled Tucker Carlson and won over a huge amount of his listeners.
That's right. He totally could have. He totally could have stood there and went, hey, this is the way I do it. I picked word, and he could have even went down and says, yeah, it was not the best choice of words because, and then Tucker called him on that, and then he submitted again, and then he submitted again.
I mean, he said it was. He admitted what I said was sloppy. I didn't really mean it.
Yeah, I really mean it.
I mean,
give me like that. It's
break.
like just and that's just to keep the current base he has from turning on him, instead of realizing that there are people that are going to turn on him, but that the pot of gold is 4 feet away from what he needs to do to get elected. And I'm not suggesting I'd like to see him being elected because this kind of situational ethics and this kind of situational mindset is not what I would like to see in leadership. I'd like to see in leadership people that can have an adult response to difficult problems. That's what I'd like to see in leadership.
Sure. But at the same time on this show, you and I call out both sides on their communication sort of tragedies and debacles and errors at the same time. I think
Joe Biden has his problems. Elizabeth Warren has hers. Bernie Sanders has his problems. All of them have problems with language because what they're doing is they're just like Trump. They try messages similar to a fisherman changing lures in different and to see which thing is going to bite. Just Trump was great from doing it on stage. He would try this, then he would try this message and spin this message and then come back to this other message. Then he would come back to messages that would get him cheers. See, he's not chaotic. He's just a person that is testing engagement. It's sort of like, well, what voltage do I get out of this? What kind of cheers do I have out of this? What kind of voltage do I get out of this? What kind of voltage? He's literally testing the vibrational energy of messaging.
I can definitely see that with Trump, but you know what, Bill? I really appreciate how you are able to show us, me and our listeners, and I hope our listeners appreciate it too, how you're willing to even show Ted Cruz and or his people what he could have done to have really come out of that, what really was, this, apology and repair, reputation. He views his reputation repair interview on Tucker Carlson, how he could have turned it around, been strong, been the leader, and come out of it looking like he's the adult in the room, not Tucker Carlson. And maybe have gotten more people to say, wow, that Ted Cruz guy, at least he's got integrity. He's standing up for what he said.
At least he's pushing back. At least he's, and Tucker minimized his degrees. He minimized his academic achievements on air. It's like, oh my gosh, you allowed this guy to take away, you're a scholar, you're a this, you're a that.
Oh, and you were a Supreme Court candidate at one point, and lawyer, you were the, it's like, yikes. So very challenging. Completely took him down at his he played to his audience and put out more propaganda at Ted Cruz's expense and manipulated his viewers, which is really part of the point. Cruz, and Ted Cruz can still now go on stage and still bring his new version of a tackle box of language and test something else in the environment. And people will be there to bite the bait of word selection that he puts in front of them just to vibrationally feel better. Tom, everyone is looking for their strawberry shortcake ice cream from a political point of view. They're looking for messages that are aligned with their bias, their beliefs, their certainty, their habits. They're looking for messaging that's familiar.
That's why a fishing lure looks like a fish. It's plastic, but it looks like a fish that they would normally buy. And that's the way language is being used right now, is how can I get somebody to engage with me, and then I can get them on the hook and cultivate and build loyalty from that moment. Now I've got that person on the hook. They're going to vote for me every time. That's why incumbents, once you win once, it's hard to get you out, because the messaging is got to be so much counter to what you've accumulated. Whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, they're in that fight because all you got to do is take a whole bunch of money and then counter message somebody to get them out of the seat. And this is one of the problems that we're currently living in and living through in our society. And it's going to be interesting to see what's coming up, because now the fight is going to be on integrity. Now the fight is going to be on, what does the cold Civil War look like? We're going to have where people are worried about the skirmishes. I was listening to an interview last night. We'll bring this up next time. There can't be a lot. You can't have one army against the other army in the United States. You can have these skirmishes. And what happens is, unless the law becomes a little more robust against violence, and that there is a little bit more public accountability for language, what winds up happening is the fight is on, are we going to live with the integrity of the rule of law? And are we going to bolster the rule of law in order to have integrity? Or are we not going to do that and then do something different, like, have a strong man, or have a autocracy, or have that, and then we'll have somebody that, for the next 10 years, you got to suffer with this leader that's on the top, that's ripping people off, and, and then we really aren't really voting for anything. And then apathy shows up next, because the votes are already rigged and people believe the votes are rigged, and there's no accountability at the local level. And then, the willingness, to hold integrity in place is not there anymore in regards to voting. And that's a little bit about where things are right now, because that's a longer discussion about what's going to take place. And that's what we can really kind of pick up next time, is how do we maintain integrity through the cold Civil War?
Well, and that maybe gets us further away from the puppet masters that are out there. Really.
That's correct. So that's right.
Okay.
Because as soon as you do that, it gets further than that. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thanks, Bill.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.